What if I told you that the church lied to you, that everything they taught you isn't exactly like that? In today's video, you'll hear the shocking story of a former nun who died, saw what no one could imagine, and came back shouting a message that Jesus sent her to deliver. So leave a like, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and comment below which city you're watching from because this truth needs to travel the world. My name is Meredith Blake. I am 41 years old. For 15 years, I was a nun in a convent in rural Texas. I believed in everything I was taught, the dogmas, the rituals, the penances. I breathed religion. I thought I was saved just by wearing that habit and repeating the memorized prayers. But nothing prepared me for what I experienced that day. It was an ordinary morning at the convent. As I was sweeping the courtyard, I felt a sharp pain on the left side of my chest. A dull pain that took my breath away in seconds. I tried to scream, but my voice wouldn't come out. I fell to the ground, alone, among the rose bushes in the convent garden. My heart simply stopped. And then, everything went dark. But it wasn't just darkness. It was emptiness, a deafening silence. Suddenly, I felt my body being sucked downwards, as if I was being dragged by an invisible, fast, brutal force. And I knew without anyone needing to tell me, this is not heaven. It was like falling into a bottomless pit, only I didn't fall, I sank. The further down I went, the denser and more oppressive the atmosphere became. There was no fire, there were no screams. What there was something much, much worse. Silence. A silence so heavy it seemed to crush my soul. And within that silence, a vibration, low, constant, like a bone-piercing hum that I didn't even know a soul could have. I looked around and realized that space was made of nothing. Only this nothingness seemed conscious. He saw me. He felt me. And I, for the first time, realized that everything I thought I knew about death, heaven, hell, was a comfortable lie. It was then that they began to appear. Figures. Shadows. They looked like people, but without faces. They were trapped. Their mouths opened, trying to speak, but no sound came out. And I knew them. Nuns who spent their entire lives in the same convent as me. Priests, devotees, missionaries, people I swore were in heaven, were there, trapped. No light, no peace. I was shaking. I wanted to run. I wanted to wake up. But I couldn't. Suddenly, a light cut through that place like a blade piercing flesh. A light so intense that it didn't hurt, but exposed. And from it, a presence. No, it wasn't an angel, nor just any spirit. It was him. Without wings, without a halo, without that stained glass image that the church sold me my whole life. He was a man, strong, real. His gaze pierced my soul, and he spoke. Not with a voice, but inside me, like a thunder that echoed in every cell of my being. Why were you taught to fear me, instead of knowing me? My spiritual body fell. I sobbed. I knew in that moment that my entire life, all my devotion, was based on a distorted version of him. When that presence, Jesus, looked at me, it was not with anger. It was with a sadness that I never imagined could exist. It was like he was disappointed, not just with me, but with what they did to his name, to his truth. He reached out his hand, and the instant it touched my spiritual hand, a kind of translucent wall appeared before us. It looked like glass, but it pulsed, as if he were alive. "Look," he said, and in that glass, scenes began to emerge. I saw my own life. Every prayer repeated without understanding. Every mass where I was present but truly absent. Every time I prayed more out of fear of hell than out of love for God. But then, the scenes changed. I saw the cathedrals. I saw the golden altars. I saw multitudes kneeling before images, relics, rituals, seeking salvation in things that had never been able to save them. And then came the sentence that tore me apart. The church lied to you, not my church, but the one that men built. My chest seemed to open. My soul screamed. I trembled, cried, sobbed. But I followed the rules. I did everything right. I stammered, or maybe I just thought. But he heard. He responded with something that still burns in my soul today. You followed rules and forgot to follow me. Suddenly, images began to overlap. I saw the story. Centuries and centuries of traditions created not to liberate, but to control. I saw religious leaders exchanging truth for power, for money, for domination. And then, a revelation I will never forget. At the top of that chain, I saw a throne that was not his. And sitting there, a man dressed in white, surrounded by gold, holding a scepter. When I tried to focus on his face, a voice echoed in my spirit with a force that seemed to shake the universe. His name is known on earth as Pope Leo XIV, but in heaven, he is called, the voice became thunder, the deceiver. At that moment, everything inside me wanted to collapse. I, who had dedicated my entire life to a religion that claimed to represent Jesus, was now standing before Jesus himself, hearing that it was never about him. When that name echoed, the deceiver, the ground of that invisible place seemed to crack beneath my feet. Jesus was holding me because I felt like my spirit was going to shatter. They used my name to build empires. His voice held no hatred but a pain that cut deeper than any knife. And then the glass wall in front of us transformed. Now it no longer just showed my life, showed the whole world. I saw millions, billions of people, some kneeling in sumptuous temples, others holding rosaries, repeating prayers. But his eyes were empty. The light that should have come from their hearts did not exist. They were lifeless rituals, empty formulas. Jesus squeezed my hand, and in the same instant, as if my consciousness was pulled to an even deeper level, I began to see the spiritual world behind the temples, behind every altar full of gold, shadows, behind every venerated image, chains, behind every ritual that promised salvation, a distortion of the truth. And then he revealed, they exchanged me for tradition. I cried, begging for forgiveness, and then the question that had been boiling inside my spirit came to me. So, the Catholic Church, the Vatican, the Pope, all of this is fake? He looked at me with those eyes that seemed to hold the weight of 1,000 universes and replied, my kingdom does not fit in buildings. It cannot be bought with tithes. It cannot be sold in indulgences. My kingdom is not in the Vatican, nor in golden thrones, nor in pompous robes. It is in brokenness, in truth, and in love. And then, as if the very veil of the universe was torn apart, I saw secret meetings inside the Vatican palaces. I saw hidden documents, contracts, spiritual agreements made with forces that were not from heaven. I saw men dressed as saints, but whose eyes were filled with darkness, and his voice cut through everything like a sword. Tell them that I never asked for temples of stone, I asked for living temples. At that moment, the light that came from Jesus became even more intense, and the shadows that surrounded me retreated as if they were burning. I realized with horror that if I had died without this revelation, my destiny would not be heaven. Everything I thought would save me, baptisms, confessions, lit candles, memorized prayers, were worth absolutely nothing. Jesus led me through that space of pure truth. It was not a physical place. It was an environment of revelation where nothing could be hidden. He then pointed with his hand and, as if an invisible curtain had opened, I saw the factory of illusion. I saw whole crowds wearing religious robes, holding crosses, praying rosaries. but in the spiritual world they were tied, chains on their ankles, shackles on their wrists, and above their heads, screens like digital storefronts, and on them, a word pulsed, written in fire, mistake. My chest was so tight I could barely stand it. My God, how did we not see it? How did we not notice? And that's when Jesus answered something that made my spirit tremble, because they exchanged my voice for the voice of religion. He then showed me a book, not just any book. It was made of living light. It seemed to pulse in my hands. At the top of it, a title that chilled me, The Record of Lies. As the pages opened, I saw names, thousands, millions, bishops, cardinals, popes, theologians, preachers, people who in the eyes of the world were saints, revered, idolized, but in the spiritual realm were soul traders. And then Jesus pointed to a specific page. There it was, Pope Leo XIII. When I looked, something inside me tore, your smiling face on earth. In the spiritual world, it was a mask. Behind her, an entity that I could never describe with human words. A being that exuded lie, control, manipulation. And Jesus said to me, with a voice that reverberated throughout my being, "He does not lead my church. He leads an empire of spiritual control. His throne on earth is but a distorted copy of the throne that belongs solely to me." My spiritual body trembled. I wanted to cover my ears, close my eyes, run away. But there was no escaping the truth. It surrounded me. It pierced me. It crushed me. And at the same time, she freed me. Then he held my face, looked deeply into my eyes and declared, tell them that the Church of Men has lied, that my children are being fed spiritual crumbs while they think they are saved, that I did not come to found a religion, I came to found a kingdom." At that moment, I knew if I came back, that would be my mission. When Jesus released my force, a new vision opened up, a colossal room made of what looked like living crystal pulsing with energy. In the center, a huge table, and on it, thousands of contracts. Yes, contracts. I asked without a voice, but he heard. What is this?" And his answer was like a punch to the soul. "These are the spiritual agreements that millions have made, without knowing it." I approached, and as the scrolls unrolled on their own, I read names, dates, places, and the terms were almost always the same. I accept that this ritual replaces the truth. I place my salvation in the intercession of saints and images. I transfer my trust to the men who claim to represent me before God. My hands were shaking. I recognized they were hidden words never said consciously, but in the spiritual world had legal weight. Jesus squeezed my shoulder and said, "Every time someone prays to a saint, lights a candle for an image, makes promises, pays for indulgences, without realizing it, they sign one of these contracts, and they become legal rights that darkness uses to bind." My eyes filled with tears. I remembered myself on my knees so many times, in front of images, praying to Mary, to saints, believing that I was doing something good, and all, that it was a spiritual agreement that I never understood. And then he took me to a specific contract. My name was there. When the scroll opened, I saw my every act recorded as clauses, participation in automatic masses, confessions made out of obligation, not out of real repentance, repeating prayers without even thinking about what they meant. I placed my faith in the rites, and not in Jesus. My spirit fell to its knees. I sobbed. My chest felt like it was going to explode. I screamed in the spirit. I didn't know. And then Jesus, with a tenderness that would break the hardest heart, replied, "But now, you know." He then touched the parchment, and the instant his fingers of light touched my name, The contract burst into golden flames.
And with it, chains I didn't even know I carried began to dissolve. At that moment I understood. He did not come to condemn. He came to cancel contracts that were holding us captive without us knowing it. After my contract was burned, I thought,
The revelation was over. I thought nothing could be more shocking than that. But I was terribly mistaken. Jesus then led me down a corridor made of living light. The walls seemed to be made of liquid glass, and within them, millions of words floated. We arrived at a door. It wasn't physical. She was a conscience. She knew I was there. She felt me. When Jesus approached, it opened by itself. What I saw took my breath away, if a soul can be breathless. It was a colossal library, shelves that had no end. Each book was not made of paper, but of light, sound, and memory. And Jesus said, pointing, "This is the record of human acts. Nothing, absolutely nothing, escapes this place." I approached one of the shelves, and without me touching it, a book floated towards me. On it, my name. When it opened, I didn't just see what I did. I saw what my actions caused in others. I saw when, at the age of 17, I harshly corrected a classmate from the convent, and I saw how that planted in her a seed of inferiority that she carried for years. I saw when I repeated prayers without faith, teaching other sisters that this was enough. And I saw how this led them to a spiritual void disguised as religiosity. And then, Jesus turned one of the pages and said, "Now, look at what you were taught that wasn't true." The page went dark, and on it appeared words that tore at my soul. Mary is co-redeemer. Prayer saves. The Pope is the infallible representative of God on earth. Confession to a man has power to forgive sins. When I read this, I screamed because each sentence had a spiritual crack, and from that crack, black threads came out that connected multitudes of people, tying them together spiritually without them realizing it. And then Jesus said something that will never leave my soul. When a lie dresses itself as truth, it becomes the most powerful prison in the universe. He took me to a section of the library where there were books with titles that chilled me to the core. The Gospel of Performance, The Faith of the Cowardly, The Market of Salvation. And there, I saw how leaders, theologians, cardinals, popes, they used fragments of truth mixed with control, fear, and idolatry to manufacture a faith that never saves. Jesus squeezed my hand, looked into my eyes, and said, "Tell them that my blood was not shed to sustain religious empires. It was shed to set them free." After we left that library, I thought I had seen it all. But Jesus looked at me with a seriousness that made my spirit tremble and said, "Now, you will see what they never wanted you to know." The environment changed. As if we had passed through an invisible veil, we entered something that looked like a control room, not from heaven, but from the system of deception that operates on earth. In the center, a throne, and in him, the one I recognized immediately, even without having ever seen him physically. The same man who had appeared before in the vision. White robes, golden cloak, crown, ring, Pope Leo XIV. But now, his appearance was distorted. Behind the human face, there was an entity, a conscious shadow, alive. His eyes had no pupils, just emptiness, and from the throne where he sat, threads came out. Thick threads made of black energy that spread through the earth like underground roots. These wires were connected to cathedrals, religious centers, houses, people kneeling, praying, thinking they were seeking God. Every time a person said an automatic prayer, lit a candle, put faith in a ritual, or placed trust in human dogma, one of these wires lit up, and Jesus revealed something that cut to my soul. The plan was never to take souls to hell openly. The plan was always to keep them blind within the religion itself. I saw how this spiritual structure worked, like a hidden banking system. Every religious act disconnected from the truth of Christ fed this throne. Spiritual energy, misdirected faith, fear disguised as devotion. And then, like a punch to the soul, Jesus said, they never wanted anyone to know about it, because if they did, the system would fall apart. Suddenly, I saw history being rewound. Centuries upon centuries of spiritual manipulation. Crusades, sales of indulgences, persecutions, disguised reforms, all part of a carefully designed cycle to keep people trapped within a captivity called religion. Jesus then showed me something even more devastating. Every time someone said, "I don't need a relationship with God because the church does it for me," a spiritual chain would close around that person's ankle. And he concluded with tears in his eyes, tears that seemed to contain the very weight of the universe. The enemy doesn't need them to sin. He just needs them to be busy there, thinking they are already saved. At that moment I understood. The greatest captivity is not blatant sin. It is the spiritual comfort of those who think everything is fine, but have never known the truth. Jesus then took me to a place that just remembering makes me tremble to this day. In front of us, a huge hall. But it wasn't just any hall, and it was eternal court. There was no ceiling. The sky was made of living light. The walls looked like compressed stars, pulsating, vibrating. In the center, a throne. Not the throne of deceit. The throne. The throne of the Most High. At that moment, my entire soul knew without anyone needing to tell me, this is where every lie falls apart. Here, no one pretends. Here, everything is naked. Suddenly, as if a force pulled me, a gigantic book opened. It was as if the entire universe was written there, and at the top of the page, my name. I saw my entire life, every hidden thought, every prayer said on autopilot, every act that seemed sacred but was empty. And then I realized, in the spiritual world there is no hidden intention. Everything we do vibrates as truth, or as deception. Jesus then pointed and another book was opened, the Book of Truth. When I looked, tears started to fall, because I saw who I should have been. I saw God's original plan for me. It wasn't to be a prisoner of rituals. It wasn't to repeat lifeless prayers. It wasn't to live in fear, trying to bargain for salvation. I saw a free woman, a woman full of light, a woman who walked side by side with God, without fear, without masks, without guilt. I saw the version of myself that the religious system robbed me. Jesus then declared, and these words were engraved on my spirit like fire, I never asked you to serve me out of fear. I asked you to walk with me in love. At that moment, a gigantic screen opened above the courtroom. It showed live the physical world. I saw churches packed, masses taking place, priests raising chalices, faithful kneeling, praying. And then, as if the film gained another layer, I saw the spiritual world behind. Where human eyes saw faith, the eyes of heaven saw shackles. The sound of automatic prayers did not rise like incense. It fell like stones to the ground of the Spirit. And then Jesus said something to me that almost made me break down completely. If they saw what I see, they would drop everything and truly seek me. He reached out, looked into my eyes, and spoke with an authority that no human words can carry. You will come back, and you will tell, because their time is running out. At that moment when Jesus spoke, their time is running out, something started to happen. That whole court, that whole spiritual reality began to tremble. It was as if an invisible cosmic clock was ticking down to the last second. I saw invisible hands turning, and on the horizon of that place, a crack in the very fabric of reality. And Jesus, looking straight into my eyes, declared, Spiritual Babylon will fall, What is false will be exposed. What is holy but corrupt will be purified by fire. My spiritual legs were weak. I was shaking. I knew this wasn't just for me. It wasn't just about me. It was about millions. Billions. Then he pointed to the earth, and I saw the Vatican. I saw cathedrals around the world. I saw temples of marble, of gold, of stained glass. And then they started to crack. First in the spiritual world, and soon after echoes of these cracks began to manifest in the physical. Jesus squeezed my hand tightly and said, "They thought they could hide, but I see. I have always seen. And now, I will raise voices. Voices that will not be silenced. Voices that are not bound by religion, nor by the system, nor by palaces. Voices from the desert. Voices from the secret. Voices from the spirit." And then, he breathed upon me, a breath that seemed to carry the sound of thunder, wind, oceans, and fire. All at the same time, my spiritual body was filled with light, a light that burned but did not destroy, a light that seemed liquid life entering inside me. Then he spoke, and I will never forget. "Go back and tell them, I am not in religion, I am in truth." And he added, "Say that I didn't ask for automatic prayers, I didn't ask for processions, I didn't ask for rituals, I asked for hearts, I asked for repentance, I asked for relationships." At that moment I heard voices, many voices. They were prayers, people who, in the physical world, were interceding for me without even knowing exactly what was happening. Each prayer rose like columns of fire, breaking chains, pushing back the darkness. Jesus then looked into my eyes one last time and said, "You don't come back the same, because now more you carry the truth, and whoever carries the truth becomes a threat." Before I could respond, a strong wind pulled me back. The courtroom disappeared. The library vanished. The lights, the sights, the sounds. Everything began to collapse as if the universe itself was closing in on me. Suddenly, my chest burned, as if something was going to explode inside. My physical body jerked. I opened my eyes. I was in the ICU, tubes, machines beeping, doctors shouting my name. But I wasn't the same anymore. I have returned with a mission, a message, a truth that you now know, and that, if it has reached you, it was not by chance. The time of blindness is over. The clock is running out, and Jesus is not in religion, he is in truth. If you liked this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.